Welcome to Real Music History and Real Sports History. I'm your host, Ryan O. Today's video is part of our resource guide. It's a video bibliography and will be an important resource to refer back to in many of our future videos on the channel. In today's video, we look at the book SuperMob by Gus Russo. I'll be reading a brief excerpt from the preface, which defines who and what the SuperMob are, and then focusing on the cast of characters section, which gives a brief bio and outlines the main power players of the scene. If you're interested in getting the full book, would like to support the channel and see more content like this, an affiliate link is in the description. You can also join the new Patreon channel for all real music history and real sports history content, along with Real Talk with Ryan O and additional live research videos only on patreon.com/realmusichistory. Patreon.com/realmusichistory. SuperMob. Noun. A group of men from the Midwest, often of Russian Jewish heritage, who made fortunes in the 20th century American West in collusion with notorious members of organized crime. Two types of power dominated the 20th century: the visible, embodied in politicians, corporate moguls, crime bosses, and law enforcement, and the invisible, concentrated in the hands of a few power brokers, generally of Eastern European and Jewish immigrant heritage. Operating safely in the shadows, these men often pulled the strings of the visible power brokers. Although they remained nameless to the public, they were notorious among a smattering of enterprising investigators who, over decades, followed their brilliant, amoral, and frequently criminal careers. The late Senate investigator and author Walter Sheridan dubbed them the SuperMob. For all their power, this covert cadre of men had a surprisingly monolithic pedigree. They shared an ancestral lineage traceable from the former Russian-mandated Jewish ghetto known as the Pale of Settlement, emigrating first to the Maxwell Street Lawndale sections of Chicago, and ultimately to what could be termed the Third Settlement, Beverly Hills, California. While they were nomadic to the degree that they followed the money, from Lakeshore Drive to the Vegas Strip to Beverly Hills, the SuperMob largely succeeded in creating better and more legitimate lives for their offspring. In the process, they became quintessential capitalists, exerting such far-flung influence that the repercussions were felt by practically every American of their era, with an economic impact that could only be measured in the trillions of dollars. Through deniable, often arm's-length associations with the roughneck Italian and Irish mobsters imprinted in the popular imagination, the SuperMob and the Hood shared a sense of entitlement regarding tax-free income. This quote-unquote kosher nostra stressed brains over brawn and evolved into a real estate powerhouse, an organized labor autocracy, and a media empire. If power does indeed corrupt, then the SuperMob corrupted absolutely. Through methodically nurtured political ties, the SuperMob effectively insulated itself from prosecution. They were above the law. They had names like Korshak, Arvey, Greenberg, Pritzker, and Ziffren. Within this SuperMob, Jake Arvey was the visionary kingmaker, the patriarchal Chicago ward boss who inspired his own young wards. Prodigies like Sid Korshak, the sphinx-like operator who quietly kept the wheels of the enterprise greased, or Alex Louis Greenberg, Paul Ziffren, and the others who plunged into stealthy entrepreneurships that made up the engine of this hidden economy. Although they propelled the making of the movies we watched, the music we listened to, the politicians we voted for, and the hotels and resorts we frequented, it is a testament to their genius that most Americans never heard of any of them. SuperMob. Cast of characters. Antonio Leonardo Accardo, 1906 to 1992, aka Tony, Joe Batters, and the Big Tuna. Served as boss of Chicago's Outfit, the most powerful underworld cartel in U.S. history for over 6 decades in the 20th century. A major force in national bookmaking, labor racketeering, the Teamsters Pension Fund, and Las Vegas casino gambling. Accardo treated Sid Korshak like a son. Jacob, Jake or Jack, Arvey, 1895 to 1977. Chicago-born attorney, political kingmaker who built one of the most powerful patronage machines in America. He served as a mentor to many of Chicago's most well-connected Jewish attorneys, and as a crucial vote deliverer for Democratic presidents such as FDR, Truman, and JFK. Key early supporter of the State of Israel. David Lionel Bazelon, 1909 to 1993. Chicago tax attorney, originally in law firms with college buddy Paul Ziffren, but left private practice to become Truman's assistant attorney general in charge of the lands division, a position that he used to his advantage in his own real estate investments. He quickly advanced to become director of the Office of Alien Property, where he oversaw the disbursement of land often to his Chicago pals, seized from the Japanese Americans sent to internment camps during World War II. Eventually became a chief judge in D.C.'s Court of Appeals. Charles Bladorn, 1926 to 1983, aka the Mad Austrian immigrant who parlayed a successful auto parts distributorship into a conglomerate comprising over 100 firms, all consolidated in 1958 when he formed Gulf and Western Incorporated. In 1966, Bladorn purchased struggling Paramount Pictures, named Sid Korshak's sycophant Bob Evans as production chief, then brought in the Mafia's Vatican money launderer Michelle Sindona as a major silent investor in the movie studio. Bladorn utilized Sid Korshak's talents to oversee his Chicago racetrack's labor issues, invested in Korshak's mob retreat, the Acapulco Towers. Albert Romolo Broccoli, 1909 to 1996, aka Cubby, one of Sidney Korshak's closest Beverly Hills friends, and producer-owner of the James Bond movie franchise. When Broccoli produced Diamonds Are Forever in Las Vegas, Korshak was the uncredited legal advisor, donating both his Riviera Hotel and his girlfriend Jill St. John to the production. Edmund G. Pat Brown, 1905 to 1996, San Francisco-born attorney and respected governor of California from 1959 to 67, father of California Governor Jerry Brown. Received important political and financial support early and often from Sid Korshak and friends. He was on the board of directors of Bernie Kornfeld's Investors Overseas Service, IOS, which bilked investors out of hundreds of millions before imploding after allegations of being a fraudulent pyramid scheme and money launderer for the mob. Founder Kornfeld served 11 months in a Geneva jail before charges were dropped, allowing him to move to Beverly Hills and date Heidi Fleiss. Jerry Brown, Edmund G. Brown Jr., born in 1938, a.k.a. Governor Moonbeam, governor of California from 1974 to 83, who received controversial labor support from Sid Korshak, allegedly in return for Brown's favored treatment of Korshak's California racetrack owner clients. Later, he was a presidential candidate in 1992 and mayor of Oakland, California. Dated Linda Ronstadt. Delbert W. Del Coleman, born 1926. After selling his interest in Seaberg Incorporated, a jukebox manufacturer linked to the outfit by the Chicago Crime Commission, the Chicago entrepreneur and investor in Sid Korshak's Acapulco Towers connived with Korshak to take over the Parvin Dorman Company as part of a master plan to buy the Stardust and other Vegas casinos. The affair ended with Coleman, Korshak, and others being rebuked by the Securities and Exchange Commission for stock manipulation. The experience also led to a permanent falling out between Korshak and Coleman. Morris Barney Mo Dalitz, or Dalitz, 1899 to 1989, a.k.a. Mo Davis, and the Godfather of Las Vegas. The leader of Cleveland's Mayfield Road Gang, where he specialized in bootlegging and gambling, moved to Las Vegas, where he owned mob-skim Desert Inn before expanding into numerous other Vegas properties and the formerly mob-friendly La Costa Resort in Southern California, considered Sid Korshak his legal advisor. Alan M. Dorfman, 1924 to 1983, for many years did the outfits and Sid Korshak's bidding as manager of the Teamsters Pension Fund, dispersing over $500 million in low-interest loans, especially to Chicago hoods in Las Vegas. In return, he received kickbacks on the loans, and his insurance company was named carrier of the lucrative Teamsters Healthcare Fund. Soon after his convictions on the kickbacks and the bribery of Nevada Senator Howard Cannon, he was murdered in the Chicago suburbs amid contentions that he had been flipped by the feds. Bob Evans, real name Robert J. Shapira, born 1930, Manhattan-born clothing salesman for his brother Charles's Evan Pacone clothing line. After a brief flirtation with acting, named by Gulf and Western chief Charles Bladorn as production head at Paramount Studios, which he gave a new life after producing hits such as The Godfather and Love Story. Well-known abuser of narcotics, Evans fell out with his longtime consigliere Sid Korshak after being busted in 1980 for cocaine possession, narrowly escaping a trafficking charge. It was reported that he later came under suspicion when Roy Radin, an investor in Evans's Cotton Club movie, was murdered in 1983, amid a haze of massive cocaine purchases and thefts. When the case came to trial in 1989, Evans, under the guidance of his attorney, Korshak friend Robert Shapiro, took the Fifth Amendment and refused to testify. Evans was a close friend and promoter of child rapist and director Roman Polanski. Dated, fill in the blank with starlet names, serial husband. John Jacob Factor, 1889 to 1984, a.k.a. Jake the Barber. British stock swindler, brother of Hollywood cosmetics baron Max Factor. After hiding out in Chicago, Factor faked his own kidnapping, with the outfit's help, to avoid extradition to the UK, sending an innocent quote-unquote kidnapper to jail for life. Later, Factor fronted for the outfit at their Stardust Hotel in Las Vegas. In Sin City, Jake took orders from Sid Korshak, while in Los Angeles, brother Max Factor employed Korshak to keep labor in line. Noted philanthropist. Charlie Joye, Gioe, originally spelled Joye, 1904 to 1954, a.k.a. Cherry Nose. Bookie in the Capone Syndicate, co-owner of Chicago's Seneca Hotel, a key supermob crossroads with Alex Greenberg. He was convicted in the 1943 Hollywood extortion scandal, after which Sid Korshak, who had visited Joye in prison 22 times, arranged for his parole supervision. Alex Lewis Greenberg, 1891 to 1955, a.k.a. the Comptometer. Chicago bootlegger and real estate investor for the Capone mob and the outfit. Loan shark and part owner of the Seneca Hotel, partnered with Paul Ziffren and others in California land investments. Al Hart, 1904 to 1979, bootlegger in the Capone mob, distillery owner, backer of Bugsy Siegel in Las Vegas. After move to California, he owned the mob-friendly Del Mar racetrack and founded the mob-friendly City National Bank of Beverly Hills, which later became the largest independent bank in California. With Sid Korshak, he was an original investor in both the Bistro restaurant and Korshak's gangster getaway, the Acapulco Towers. Conrad Hilton, 1887 to 1979. New Mexico-born patriarch of the Hilton Hotel dynasty. Partnered with mob front Arnold Kirkeby to expand his empire, which utilized Sid Korshak as labor consultant. Paid for his long association with Korshak when his bid to obtain a New Jersey casino license was rejected in 1985, largely due to Korshak's mob ties. James Riddle Jimmy Hoffa, 1913 to 1975, ? Rugged son of an Indiana coal miner who seemed predestined to head a violence-prone organization like the Teamsters, which he did from 1957 until his imprisonment for jury tampering in 1967. Hoffa was only able to attain his post thanks to the key backing of outfit bosses such as Curly Humphreys, who had their sights fixed on the heavily endowed pension fund. When Hoffa allowed them Las Vegas loans, he had to answer to Sidney Korshak. Hoffa disappeared in 1975 after he announced he wanted to take back the Teamster presidency from a cabal that made Hoffa's relationship with racketeers seem benign by comparison. Howard Robard Hughes, 1905 to 1976. Texas-born aviation industry pioneer, film producer, Las Vegas hotel magnate, recluse, and best-known sufferer of obsessive-compulsive disorder. Hughes tangled, successfully, with Sid Korshak over ownership of RKO Studios in the 50s, and unsuccessfully with Korshak's outfit pals in Las Vegas in the 70s. Burton W. Cantor, 1930 to 2001. Abe Pritzker's Chicago tax attorney and a founder of the Castle Bank in the Bahamas, where the Pritzkers and other clients were able to dodge millions in taxes in the 1970s. Cantor, himself a multimillionaire, openly admitted to not paying taxes for decades. With the Pritzker dynasty, he devised a kickback scheme involving prudential insurance and creative forms of offshore film financing used to bankroll some of Hollywood's biggest hits. At the time of his death, after a complicated 10-year IRS investigation, he was awaiting sentencing for massive tax evasion. Noted philanthropist. Kirkorian, born 1917. California-born, hugely successful dealmaker and conglomerate builder. After an early profitable airline venture, he purchased MGM and numerous Las Vegas hotels, including the Hilton International, MGM Grand, the Mirage, and Mandalay Bay. In his early career, he was linked by telephone wiretaps to Genovese crime family enforcer Charlie the Blade Torine. Arnold S. Kirkaby, 1900 to 1962, Chicago real estate speculator who partnered with Conrad Hilton openly in numerous hotels and restaurants, and with hoods such as Meyer Lansky and Longy Zwillman covertly. Morris Jerome Marshall Korshak, 1910 to 1996, Sidney's kid brother and another Chicago-born attorney, one of the most successful elected politicians, a liberal Democrat, in 20th century Chicago, and a lifelong supporter of the State of Israel. Sidney Roy Korshak, 1907 to 1996, a.k.a. The Fixer, The Myth, Mr. Silkstockings, and The Duke. Chicago-born attorney who was the point man in the Chicago Outfit's power plays in Hollywood and Las Vegas, often conducting business from his table at the Bistro restaurant in Beverly Hills, where he had relocated in the 50s. Middleman between the mob-controlled Teamsters and legit corporations who curried its favor for labor peace. In Vegas, he was in charge of a number of hotel casinos, most notably the Riviera, frequent escort of actress Jill St. John, Oppenheim, and Stella Stevens, real name Estelle Eggleston, among others. Irv Kupcinet, 1912 to 2003, a.k.a. Cup. Iconic Chicago Sun-Times gossip columnist and Emmy Award-winning television host, Cup was a longtime friend of Sid Korshak's, with whom he shared Table 1 in the Ambassador East Pump Room. Korshak came to Cup's aid when Cup's daughter was murdered in Hollywood in 1963. Paul Domingue Laxalt, born 1922, Nevada-born U.S. Senator from 1974 to 87 and Governor of Nevada from 67 to 71. Ronald Reagan's closest pal and his presidential campaign chairman, he was also close to his own chief fundraiser, Ruby Collard of Cleveland's Mayfield Road Gang and Chicago's Sid Korshak. When Laxalt needed a loan to build his Ormsby House Casino in Carson City, soon to be skimmed by the Chicago outfit, Korshak allegedly had him write a character reference on behalf of imprisoned Jimmy Hoffa to President Nixon. Korshak then set him up with a loan from a friendly Chicago banker. When these associations and allegations were reported in the Sacramento Bee, Laxalt's long-planned presidential bid was torpedoed. James Cesar Petrillo, 1892 to 1984, a.k.a. Little Caesar and the Mussolini of music. Longtime Chicago president of the powerful American Federation of Musicians, the AFM. He's often linked to the Chicago outfit. Petrillo gave favored fee status to Stein's fledgling MCA, enabling it to bury the competition. He was a target of 3 congressional investigations and 2 federal prosecutions for union corruption. Abe Pritzker, 1896 to 1986. Chicago attorney, Pritzker & Clinton, and corporate mogul, Hyatt Hotel chain, and the massive Marmon Group conglomerate. His firm, Stanford Clinton, was a trustee of the mob's bank, aka the Teamsters Pension Fund, from which Hyatt made low-interest loans. Often linked to Chicago's outfit and LA's quote-unquote Capone, Jack Dragna, Pritzker employed lifelong friend Sid Korshak to keep labor unions in line. His company paid penalties of $460 million for a fraudulent bank failure and millions more to the IRS for tax evasion. The Pritzker empire was the largest depositor in the offshore Bahamian Castle Bank, which was developed by Pritzker's tax attorney, Burton Cantor, as a vehicle for tax dodging. Noted philanthropist. Ronald Wilson Reagan, 1911 to 2004, a.k.a. Dutch, the Gipper, and the Great Communicator. Sub-B actor from Iowa, who started out in outfit-controlled joints before being promoted by his agents, MCAs Stein and Wasserman, into the Screen Actors Guild presidency, the California governorship, and eventually the U.S. presidency. Lifelong hunter of commies, both real and imagined, and an informant on fellow actors for the FBI's J. Edgar Hoover, told the Soviets, "Tear down this wall." Harvey Silbert, 1912 to 2002, Chicago-born attorney, moved to L.A., where he was a partner in the powerful law firm Wyman, Boutzer, Rothman, Kushel, Christensen, and Silbert, which represented many A-list celebrities. Personal attorney for Frank Sinatra. Silbert was a stockholder in Korshak's heavily skimmed Riviera, which he managed for a time. FBI sources alleged that Riviera skim was laundered through Silbert's law firm. Silbert was also a director of the beleaguered Parvin Dorman Corporation, prolific philanthropist, especially to Jewish causes. Michel Eugenio Sindona, 1920 to 1986. aka the Shark and St. Peter's banker. Charlie Bladorn's Sicilian alter ego, a successful industrialist, banker, conglomerate builder, also a reputed made mafioso who laundered Gambino family heroin profits through the Vatican Bank, one of his clients. And a member of the secret Italian Masonic Lodge, known as P2. After investing heavily in Bladorn's Paramount Pictures, he was convicted of bank fraud in 1980, sentenced to 25 years, then extradited to Italy, where he was convicted in 1986 of ordering the murder of an Italian prosecutor who was investigating Sindona's vast mafia entanglements. 2 days after his murder conviction, Sindona died in an Italian prison, poisoned under mysterious circumstances. Dr. Julius Cesar Jules Stein, 1896 to 1981. Chicago ophthalmologist and founder of Music Corporation of America, MCA, and Universal Pictures, arguably the most powerful entertainment conglomerate in American history. Early friend of Al Capone, who helped Stein muscle his way into the business by smoke bombing competitors. His MCA was continually investigated by the feds for 6 decades with minimal repercussions. Noted philanthropist. Lester Velli, 1908 to 2003. Classmate of Sid Korshak's at the University of Wisconsin, preeminent award-winning investigative journalist for Collier's and Reader's Digest, a lifelong organized crime gadfly, and the first to crusade against Korshak, Ziffren, and the SuperMob. Louis Lou Wasserman, originally Weiserman, 1913 to 2002. MCA president who, with Jules Stein, became one of the most powerful entertainment moguls in America. Tried hard to stay out of the public eye and was known as a brilliant visionary, tough businessman, and master of corporate tax avoidance through the use of the Dutch sandwich scheme. Heavily reliant on Sid Korshak's sway over Hollywood unions and guilds. Together with Ziffren and Korshak, known as the Three Redwoods, Wasserman was an important West Coast supporter of many Democratic presidents. Paul Ziffren, 1913 to 1991, Chicago attorney and possibly the illegitimate son of Jake Arvey. Specializing in tax law, frequent real estate speculator, especially in post-war California with the likes of Alex Greenberg, David Bazelon, Fred Evans, and Sam Jennis. In his 20-year run as California's Democratic National Committeeman, Ziffren became, like his mentor Arvey in Illinois, a kingmaker for the Democratic Party in California in the mid-20th century. Brought both the 1960 Democratic Convention, which nominated JFK, and the 1984 Olympics to L.A. His prestigious L.A. law firm, Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, which specialized in tax matters, had a large celebrity clientele. Abner Zwillman, 1904 to 1959, a.k.a. Longy, New Jersey's most notorious gangster, founder of Murder Incorporated. Among his enterprises were gambling, prostitution running, and control of labor unions. Zwillman was possibly the first big gangster to wash his money in so-called legit businesses such as Kirkaby's Hilton Hotels, casinos from Havana to Las Vegas, and in Hollywood movie studios, where his interests and girlfriends, such as actress Jean Harlow, were often watched over by Sid Korshak. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Please like, subscribe, and share the channel. We learned about the hidden hand and control mechanisms behind practically everything we know of music, movies, records, radio, recording, sports, casinos, hotels, and all the labor unions behind the scenes of those industries. A glimpse into the complete top-to-bottom control grid nexus of power hinted at by Russo's book title, SuperMob. The full partnership at the highest levels of so-called legitimate government with so-called organized crime, ultimately to be seen as one unified power structure. In the end, it is the SuperMob which installs all the modern U.S. presidents, from FDR and Truman through JFK, Reagan, Clinton, Obama, and crowning achievement, Trump. The nexus of Central Intelligence, Zionist heavyweights, quote-unquote mob thugs, Vatican Bank, secret societies, and outfit SuperMob lawyers who rule labor unions and offshore banking, where black operations money flows through the Bahamian laundry machine and into tentacles which include financing Hollywood movies and MCA albums. Be on the lookout for part 2 of this video. I'll expand on some of the characters, add some stories, and my own thoughts and perspective to Russo's crucial work. If you like this content, please consider becoming a member of our Patreon channel, which is patreon.com/realmusichistory. By becoming a member, you get all of the content from both of our channels, Real Music History, Real Sports History, and from my podcast, Real Talk with Ryan O, where we discuss everything else in between. If you are a reader, I have affiliate links for the books SuperMob, The Outfit, Dark Victory, Mr. and Mrs. Hollywood, and The Last Mogul. You can support directly by reaching my Cash App at #RealMusicHistory or become one of the first 1,000 hardcore fans on our Patreon channel at patreon.com/realmusichistory. Keep it real.